What's the nicest thing you've done for someone? A friend I went to high school with is an elementary school teacher at a school without a lot of money. She did one of those GoFundMe but for teachers things. I can't remember the site exactly or what the project was, something tech related. She posted it on Facebook and there was a decent amount of sharing and stuff. But outside of a few $25.50 donations there wasn't a lot of actual activity. A month or two goes by and I check up on it again. It's only like halfway to the goal with a few weeks to spare. I finished it out and paid for the rest of it. I wanna say it was $300 or something like that. Never told anyone I know about it. Left it anonymous on the donation too. This is actually the first time I've mentioned it to anyone at all. Just felt good. Knew someone at school who was raised by a single parent. Said parent developed cancer and my friend, who had been obviously depending on her, became utterly depressed. Couldn't cook meals, finish schoolwork, do sport. Most of his time was dedicated to his parent. I bought meals for him, helped him catch up all his missed classes, organized stuff to get him outside, etc. He's doing better now. So is his mum. Although we don't talk anymore. Still. Felt worthwhile. Someone dropped their lotto ticket and I returned it to them. They won $400 and gave me half. I helped a waitress at a restaurant I frequent. After a few months of patronage I knew most of the staff and was on a first name basis with them. I learned that she was working 6 days per week, 8 to 10 hours per day, and going to school full time, 5 days per week, 6 hours per day, plus she traveled by bus between 2 and 3 hours per day. A quick bit of mental math. On a bad day she could spend 19 hours with her obligations, not counting bathing, eating, or homework. And after she paid for her tuition, she only had 10% of her paycheck left over. As I have no family nor children of my own, I decided to pay for her university. She has since quit her job and is focusing on her studies. She regularly sends me updates about her classes and I'm happy to report she's getting straight A's as a psychology major. I came home late on a delayed flight and there was an old woman sobbing at the bus depot because no one was there to take her home. This was in the middle of a bad snowstorm at 1 AM so no one wanted to drive. I picked her up and drove out of my way to drop her off. Had to drive an extra half hour in the worst conditions ever but it all worked out. I switched from one type of insulin to another. After switching, I had about 30 vials of Novolog left over that I didn't need. We had a guy come out and do electrical work on our house and saw that he wore an insulin pump. I asked him what kind of insulin he used. He said Novolog. I asked him if he wanted my leftover, non-expired, still sealed vials. He said sure. I imagine he was thinking that it was going to be only a few. I loaded them all up into a Walmart bag and gave them to him. I don't know if he had to pay out of pocket or anything for his. But even if he did, the total cost to him for it could have well exceeded $1,500 in just co-pays alone. He was nearly in tears when I told him to keep it all. I cut the lady's lawn next door for free because she sold. An acquaintance talked about suicidal thoughts over several weeks online. One day he said goodbye forever and left all groups. I found his address and sent an ambulance there. He's feeling better now, and thanked me a few days afterwards. Took the time to listen. There was this girl who was a grade below me. She didn't have a lot of friends. Seemed to come from a strict family. We went to a small school so it's hard not to at least know a face. On a school trip we got to talking. Her details are not important. I had been through some small school. Small community. My was known. I assume that's why she opened up to me. Ran into her several years later. She said I saved her life with that conversation. She'd been thinking about suicide. Now she was thriving in college. I haven't forgotten that lesson. I don't know if it's the nicest thing, but a friend of mine was having a bad day so I surprised her with mozzarella sticks when I saw her that night. She cried. Once I found a girl curled into a ball in the subway stairs. She had been having coffee with her friend. And in the time she had reached the station she got a call that her friend had been hit by a car and died. She was in shock. I stayed with her for half an hour. Simply being there so she wasn't alone. Until she recovered enough to go on her way. We've never met again. Of course. This is a huge city. My boyfriend never thought his birthdays were a special thing. For his birthday I contacted all of his friends, weeks in advance, and asked them to send a short video of them wishing him a happy birthday as some of them are abroad. I then made a compilation video of these as well as pictures of him growing up just to show him how special he is to everyone around him. Especially me. And how much he has impacted my life and so many others in such a positive way. I showed him this after I took him on a limousine ride to the Shard in London and gifted him a star in our names at the top of the building. He's done so much for me. I wanted his day to be just as special as he makes every day for me. An old buddy of mine was having trouble with his graphic design homework and I was a year ahead of him in university. So he comes to me asking for help because he knows he isn't that good. I proceed to go to his room and sit there for a solid 6 hours helping him understand fundamentals, learn hotkeys, and answer any of his questions. The next day he says he is now passing and his teacher is proud of how much he has improved. Befriended someone so they wouldn't commit suicide. A year later and we're still good friends. I am a 9/11 survivor. I was in concourse when first plane hit. Long story very short. I was carried out by a police officer and put in an ambulance. As ambulance was pulling away, the first tower goes down. The cop's body was found 4 months later. His 2 kids went go to college on me. I did it anonymously. Not all us Wall Street guys are pricks. Just most of them. Bought a car for an employee. I was the GM at a pub a few years ago. Had an amazing waitress. Single mother with 1 more on the way. She had no personal transportation in a city with notoriously bad public transit. Still somehow made it to work each day. Even if it meant walking her pregnant self 5 miles. She was always stressed about trying to provide for her kids. But was still professional and hardworking. My tax return was pretty good that year. And a friend happened to be selling a reliable older car for a reasonable price. I moved not long after that. But she found me on social media years later to thank me. And explain that she was in a good place now and would like to repay me. I turned her down. Seeing her success was 100% worth the cost of the car. Bought some random person a train ticket when the train was about to leave in 2 minutes and he didn't have enough change on him. He had a credit card. But the machine did not accept it. I used to work in the visitors clubhouse for a single A baseball team. I'd also help do things on the home side. And during the game if I got what I needed to get done, I could watch a few innings. All that is to say I didn't spend all my time in the visitors locker room. After the game was over, one of the visiting players came up and told me he was missing money from his wallet. Something like $150. There's very limited access to the clubhouse. Besides me and like 1 or 2 other guys. It'd only be members of their team. I didn't want to think any of his teammates did it. And I didn't want to chance wrongly accusing any of my clubhouse co-workers. I ended up just giving him $150 of my own money. The job paid terribly but I got $45 a night for doing the laundry so I had cash on me. I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck or anything. But still. The front office ended up finding out about it. And I got a bunch of coupons for free stuff from businesses who sponsored the team, which was nice. I've bought groceries and school supplies for several families in the area that obviously needed the help. But didn't have the ability to ask or were just unable to. One that sticks out in my head the most was a young woman who was trying to buy both during a tax holiday we have here in Alabama. She was in front of me at Walmart. And just flat out couldn't cover all that she needed. So she started putting stuff back. Her daughter crying over crayons was what broke me. Little girl wanted the big box. And her mom was putting it back. I said excuse me. Walked past her and put my card in the reader. No kid should ever have to cry over the big box of crayons. After this girl in 3rd or 4th grade had bullied me for months, I found her crying in the back of the bus. I asked her what was wrong and she denied telling me. I spoke to her friends and they said she wouldn't tell them either, so I went and managed to get her to tell me what was wrong. It turned out her father had been molesting her and he had just been sentenced to prison. I sat there the rest of the bus ride and talked to her about it and helped her calm down a bit. I know that must have extremely traumatic and I hope her life is better. I talked to a friend who wanted to kill himself. His family was trash and didn't even try to prevent it. Some of his other friends condoned it and one even tried to help. Apparently, I was the only person who told him that it was a mistake. Eventually, he got through his troubles, graduated college shortly after, and now lives with his amazing fiancée. It can get better. Folks, I can think of very few situations where suicide is the answer. I bought a single mom a bunch of stuff she couldn't afford to get her children off of her Amazon wish list anonymously for Christmas. Calming down my best friend when they were doing bad in her pre-AP math class and I had a decent grade, so I tutored her and she got her 84 in that class. It made me so happy knowing that I helped her. After spending much of my 20s asking my dad for financial help, I was finally able to return the favor. Dad hit hard times and while I wasn't in great shape either, I paid his mortgage for the month. Another time, I reconnected with my high school best friend, and he wasn't doing too well. Divorce. Lost his job. He didn't ask, but I sent him $100 as a gift to help him power through. Maybe I got played, but he wasn't the type before, so I doubt it. I don't have many friends, and the ones I do have tend to have the kind of problems I can't physically do anything about. But I help when I can. I don't believe in saying no when someone needs help I can afford to give. I'm no saint either, but at least I know I'm not a total dick. There was an elderly woman with Down syndrome in the same hospital room as my grandma after she fell and broke her pelvis bone. She couldn't speak English that well as she was very old and sick, but she kept complaining that her leg was hurting and would repeat that and then begin to whimper. It looked as if she was going to cry. So I went over to her and gave her a hug. A huge smile spread across her face. And then I drew her a picture of a dog. For a few moments she forgot about all of her pain and loneliness. Brought my mom to tears. When I was 13, I was going to have lunch at the school's bar and this 10-year-old kid shows up and is talking with his friend about not having money for lunch, so I bought him lunch while I had a water bottle with what I had left. 3 months later he finds me at school randomly around the place and thanks me. Felt nice. I got tipped $1,400 as a delivery driver before. So shortly after I gave about $200 to this single mom I worked with and gave random $20s to charities around Christmas. Also left some $20 tips.